icons into Webflow is when you are giving the design, you can export the icon as an image. So there are a lot of people that import icon as image. Okay, so once you import it as image, you can drop it right here on your assets. Then you can create your two divs. Okay, you can create your div, add the image icon, resize it, and then add your text close to it. That's one way to do that. But if you need an SVG, so a lot of people use SVG for icons because they're a little bit, the difference is that with SVG, you can easily change the color right here on Webflow in case you don't like the color. Okay, so with with SVG, you bring it in as an embedded code. So SVGs are usually code. Okay, so if you see an SVG graphics, it's usually a code. So you can use this particular code custom elements or this coded embed to bring it in. So the SVGs, they are like code. So you just copy the code. Once you paste it, you see that icon. So you can easily change the color. So you can bring in an icon as an SVG, or you bring it in as an image. But subsequently, if you are using any design library, they are likely going to have icons. So you can also easily use those ones. But we will not be dealing with design library at this stage because you really need to learn how to create. If you wanted to just learn design library, it shouldn't take you up to 1 hour. But the reason why we've spread this curriculum this way is so that you learn how to build like a developer, right? The only thing is that you are using like a no-code tool. So that's the difference. Okay. Any other question? But by the time we are building a full project, we'll definitely bring in icons because we can't say we are building without working with icons. So let me go ahead and turn this off for now. Settings and hide. So we've been using this hide because Webflow only gives you opportunity to work on 2 projects for free. So that's why we've been doing this hide so that we can explore different components. Okay, because we can't just be adding multiple pages. Webflow doesn't allow that except your page. Okay, so any other question before we proceed? If you have questions, please raise up your hand so you can ask. And okay, so since there are no other questions, I think we can proceed now. So today we want to take a look at some of these properties we've been using so that you understand them clearly, because it's very important you understand them so that you can, instead of just doing as I do, you actually know exactly what you want to do. Okay. The first one here we want to take a look at is display. This property here, display. Let me see if I can zoom this. Okay. Okay. So this property here, display. Okay. What exactly is display? Christiana, can you explain what this display is? Christiana, are you there? Christiana. Daniel, can you explain what this display is? And I know the Ayodele Akande, can you explain what this display, what you understand by this display? Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. I can't see any video. It's only your voice I'm hearing.
Okay, maybe it's from your network. My screen is actually displaying. But you know that property
I
we normally use on layout, we choose display.
display.
Yes.
Not sure.
Okay. So let me go ahead and I don't know, but you guys need to be seeing my screen. Who else is not seeing my screen?
Maybe I should log out and log in again.
Okay, try that. Abdurrahman, can you see my screen?
Yes, 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 sir. I can see it.
Okay, okay, great. So, do you have anything? Can you explain this display?
Okay, sir. I can try.
Okay. I actually can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So display majorly explain how we want to section elements in a particular component. Like how do we want to uh the pattern you want for it, maybe side by side, or it should overlap or top each other. That's
Okay. Okay,
that's
fair
what I
enough.
can say about it.
Okay. So, remember we said the way HTML content are structured is using the box model. Okay. So whenever you put any div, whenever you put in any div or any element, they take up. Ah, who is Williams? Williams Coleman. This now, like we said, most HTML elements, whenever you add them, they always take up the full width, right? It uses a block display by default. That means if you add another element, maybe if you add another element, that element is also going to take up full width like this. If you add another element, it will take up full width continuously like that. They stack on top of each other. Now, if you don't want them to stack on top of each other, you use the display property. It's a CSS property to tell those elements how they should what display. But by default, they will be blocks. They will display as block. So even if you type a text like hi, this hi, once you type it, is going to take up the full width. Okay, the full width. So because it's a paragraph element, it's going to take up the full width. So let me admit someone. So once you type in an element, or once you drag in an element and drop an element here, it is going to span the full width. Okay. Now, sometimes you must not want something to span the full width, and that is where display comes in. You can use display to tell it, I don't want you to span the full width. Instead, span this way instead. Okay. Kingsley, you raise your hand. What's it? Kingsley, do you have any question? Okay. I know you're a mistake. So, like I said, if you come in here, if you pick any elements, any element at all, okay? If you pick, let's say, heading, let's pick a heading, and let's type in anything. Where is it? Oh, it's inside the hidden one. Okay. You can see that it automatically takes the full width. You can see, right? You can see that it automatically takes the full width. If I duplicate this, duplicate it, you can see it's basically taking up the next line, Now, With display, you can actually tell that element, okay, that you don't want it to take up the full width. Immediately after the full width is basically this block you see here, okay? So this is the default. So anytime you add an element, it will be on block. This means take up the full width, that is block, right? Now, what if you want, so you might see different display options for different elements. You can clearly see that this text element does not have the grid, but it has flex. Now, immediately after block, block is quite understandable. Block simply means take up the full width, right? Take up your normal HTML tag width, that is full width, okay? Now, if you want to be able to stack them close to each other, that means after this one comes the next one. Then you change the display to flex. So immediately you choose flex. Watch what happens to this full width. Now, immediately you choose flex, you can now change the setting of the flex. You can see, let me go back to block. You can see there is no direction here, but immediately you choose flex, you have these directions and the alignment to choose from. Right now, it's stretching this way. You can stretch it this other way by double clicking here. This is space between. If you want it, you can see it has come to the center, this alignment. I can move it to the left. I can move it to the right. Are you getting it? Now, if I hold down Alt, I can stretch it this other way or this other way. Are you getting it? So this is what? Flex. But you know, you can't do the same thing to these ones because it is still set to what? Block. So block, flex will basically flex the element. That means immediately one element, it will get the actual size of the element, the actual width of the element, and then add the next one to follow it. Okay? Daniel, go ahead.
Sir, please, what you said about the heading, please, can you come again?
What I said about what?
The heading, about moving into the center, please, can you come again? Network lag is making it difficult for me to comprehend.
Okay, no problem. So, like I said, when you are using block as your display, if you are using block as your display, you can't move these things anyhow. They just occupy the full width. Okay? They just occupy the full width. But once you set it to flex, let me explain here. You see that heading? If you set it to block, it will just occupy full width like this. I think let me just use this other board. This one is always confusing. Let me use this other mirror board. Okay. I'm trying to sign in. Let me use this other mirror. Where is the mirror? Class board. Okay. Okay. Okay, we are here. Now let me explain. Let me get like a browser. Let me get a browser here. Who reached 3 boards? Who are these people now? Sorry, let me just delete some of these boards. I don't know. All this, some student came here to open more. Okay, let me just use this board. I'll delete it later. Okay, let's get this. Let's get some elements here. Let's get some frames. Let me get a browser. Okay. Okay. So what I'm saying is this. Once you have if you add any HTML element on your screen, it's going to take full width like this. This is called block display. If you add another one, okay, if you add another one, it's going to be under it like this. It's basically going to stack. Okay, if you add another one, it's going to stack. If you add another one, it's going to stack. And that is exactly what you saw here. We have heading, and when we added a new heading, you can see where this heading stopped. The G. This one should have joined it, but it didn't. It stacked. It went down. The same thing here. It went down. There's no way to move this around. You can't move it around, right? But now, if you set the heading to the display to flex, what is going to happen is that it will locate the end of that content inside and then become the exact width. So if this is the width of the content, it will now give you this freedom. So now, once it's like this now, you can easily move this maybe to the center or to the right or to the middle. But with the way it is here, displaying block, you just can't move it around. Okay, so when you don't want to move things around, or when you want them to span the whole width, just choose what? Block display. Block will push every other thing next to it under. But with flex, they can now start accommodating each other. This one can even come here and take up its own width. This one can come here and take up its own width. That is what? Flex. That is how flex works. So if you use display flex, this is what will happen. So to visualize it more, let's go ahead and delete all these things now. Let me use a div instead. So let me get a div. Okay, let me get a div. And let's get a div. And you can see by default, that div is set to block. I think this thing I've entered inside again. Let's bring it outside. So it is entering inside this section that we hid. That's why. So we have it here. Let me give it a color so you can see what's going on. Let me go to background. Okay. Let me go to background and give it a red color there. So we can see what is going on basically. Now, let me add another div inside. Plus, and let's add a div. Now, with this div right here, you can see it is also set to block. Let me go ahead and give it a color. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a color. Let's go with something around yellow. Okay, good. Now, if I open the navigator, you can see that this div is inside this one. So let me go ahead and duplicate this, Control D. Let me give that one color red. Okay, let me go something close to cyan. Okay, so something is happening here. They all have, let me rename this class, okay? Let me rename it to CON1, okay? For this one, I'm going to delete this class here and instead make it CON2, okay? And let's give it a color. Remember, I'm doing this so I can style them separately. Okay. Now let's duplicate this one again. Let's duplicate this one. But we are going to change the name, remove the class. Let's call it CON3. So I'm just using that as container 1, container 2, container 3. Okay. Let's change this to like a bright green. Okay, good. Now you can see this container 1, container 2, container 3. Let's move this up. Let's move, okay, container 1, container 2, container 3. Okay. You can see that they are all taking full width, full width, full width. That is because the container holding them, that's this one. Let's call this one main container. Let's click here. Let's rename it this way, rename it this way. Let's main container. Now you can see that this main container is set to what? Block. Now, because it's set to block, all the children inside, they are taking full width, full width, full width. It's also taking what? Full width. But if you just come here and select this one, okay, if you come in here and ask it to display flex, see what happens. You can see container 1, all of them now stack inside. They've stacked inside. Instead of what? Taking up one width each. they have all what? Stacked inside. So that's basically what's happening here. And that's why it looks like you are no longer seeing them. Now, let me Ctrl Z again. What if the only thing you want to be displayed as flex is basically these inside ones, Like if I select container 1 now and say flex, you see what happens? Based on the direction I chose, anything you put inside this container now will not stack on each other again. Instead, they will just go inside, just like I've explained right here. They will start forming this kind of numbers. But if it is just one element that is inside, you might not really notice it. So let's go ahead and style this, okay? So you can see what's going on. So let's select this one again. Let's say display flex. And let's choose the direction. Let's choose the direction this way. So we can see it 1, 2, 3. If you want them to stack this other way, you choose the direction. Now, whenever you make something flex, it's the containers inside becomes its children. Okay, it becomes its children. Let's make it left first. Let's make it this way. Okay, I want to explain this. So here is direction. You can choose direction this way. So right now it is facing this way. If you choose this way, it will arrange them vertically. You can see 1, 2, 3. If you choose this way, it will arrange them horizontally. So let's go ahead and choose vertically. You can see them stacked like this: 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now this is alignment. You can use this to align them to the bottom. Okay, to the left. So if I scroll, if I close this, you see it right here. You can bring it to the middle, to the top, to the center, okay? And here you have it. Now, what if you want to separate, increase the space between them? You use gap for that. So if I come in here and type in maybe 100, you can see it has spaced them using 100 pixel, okay? If you make it, let's do 24, it has given 24 pixel spacing between the elements inside. Remember, this is only available when you set the parent container to flex. So if you set the parent container to flex, which we have here, you can see the structure, the main container, all the children inside will start responding based on their actual width. Okay? Now, I'm trying to explain all these properties for you. You know, when you choose flex, you can choose the direction. It can be this way or this way. This way or this way. Okay? Once you understand how this tool works, the next thing you want to understand is the alignment. So you can use here to align how they appear. So you can go middle, you can go bottom, but you might not see the difference here because they are the same height. You can go left, and let me hide this. You can see them left. You can also see them right. Okay, now, and this is the gap. So I hope you understand these properties here now. When you choose a flex for a parent container, these are the settings you can manipulate. Now, immediately you choose something as flex, the children automatically have a specific type of property. So let me come back here. These are the children of the main container that you've given flex to. The children are going to become flex child, something called flex child. Okay, so let me come back to main container and let's use this direction instead so you can understand this flex child. Now, if I select this one, you can see it's a flex child. If I also select container 2, it's a flex child. If I also select container 3, it's a flex child. So anything inside this container right now is going to be a flex child. And flex child have specific properties. So let's select container 1. What are the properties? Under the sizing, you have 3 main options. You can decide to say shrink if needed. That means if there is no space, shrink to your actual size. And that is why, because there's no need for them to expand, because there's no element inside them that is bigger than them. They just maintain their original size. But what if, even without elements inside them, you want them to shrink based on the available space? Okay, you can see we still have more space here. If you these are all space, this red is the main container background. You can see there's space. Now, if we want it to take up any space that is remaining, we'll choose the second one instead, which says grow if possible. Again, remember, these only appear if you are using if they are inside a container using the flex display. If you are using block, you won't see these properties. Now, if we say grow if possible, watch what happens. It's going to grow and cover any space it sees. But you can see these 2 and 3, they are just there because we told them not to grow. If I select the second one too and say grow if possible, it's going to look for the space which is available, obeying this spacing. That 20%, 24% px we added is going to obey it, but it's also going to grow. Now you can see they have grown, but this one is just here. Okay, if this is what I want, perfect. But if I want them to have equal sizes, I'll just go ahead and select this one too and say grow if possible. Now I have 3 columns right here using the flex display. Now, if I go ahead and also duplicate this, you can see if I keep duplicating, I'll keep having all of them because they're using what? Grow. So it's important for you to understand this because you are going to be using things like this to create your what? Layout. And don't forget, you also have the opportunity to also choose how the elements inside each of these div is going to look like. Is it going to be flex, grid, or block? But for now, we've used block. So anything we put inside here will just stay put. Right? It will take up the full width. So that is for what? This display. And for the display, we've just handled flex. So I don't know, is there anyone here that still finds it confusing so that I can explain better? The flex display property. Remember, anytime you have your flex, if you apply flex to your main container, all the child inside becomes a flexed child. Flexed child. Okay? If I select this one too now and go to layout and choose flex, anything I'm adding inside, we have flex child. And for flex child, you can adjust their properties by either saying shrink if needed, or grow if possible, or do not shrink or grow. Do not shrink or grow will just give you the actual size of that element. It won't move, it won't do anything, no matter what is happening around it. Okay, good. Now, the next one, let's add a new div now. The next one we want to talk about is grid. So how does it work? Let's add a new div. Let's call this, let's take it outside. So let's take it out. So always take note of these things. So let's add this, let's call this grid layout. Grid, okay, grid container. Let's call this grid container. Now, if you want to represent things, if you have elements and you want them to freely flow, you want to create like a grid for them, okay? That is when you say display grid. Unlike the display flex, grid is more flexible in the sense that it calculates its children automatically without you necessarily adding divs inside. So let's see how that works. If you come in here and you choose grid, okay, it gives you this icon. This icon, you can access it here or you can access it here. But I like clicking here, so I'll see it visually. You can see it has given us 2 columns and 2 rows. If you want more here, all you need to do is to click on plus. If you want more row, you click on plus. Okay. Now, the advantage of this grid is that, let me deselect. You see that you won't really see much. If I deselect now, You won't see anything until you start dragging content inside. So let's start dragging content inside. Let me reduce this back. And sorry. Let me come back here. Let me not minus it from there. Let me just do 2 from here. Okay. So let's start dragging things inside. You will notice that immediately I click, let me drag anything. Let me drag the heading inside here. It's going to stay there. Okay. Let's just do heading 1. Okay. Heading 1. Now, let me duplicate this heading 1. You see that it automatically enters the second grid. Let me keep duplicating 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So let's go ahead and edit this. Heading 2. Okay. Heading 3. You can see we didn't create div. Instead, anything we dropped was moving to the next grid. So heading 4, heading 5, and heading 6. Now, watch what happens if I duplicate. It automatically creates another one for us. Unlike Flex. Okay. Let's duplicate, Control D, Control D. So let's do heading 8, heading 9. But see what happens if I begin to delete. I'm trying to select this. Okay, heading 9. Now let's select this and see what happens. Let's go back to the main one, the grid container. Remember, this could be any content. Let's go and start reducing these things. You can see that because there's content inside, it's not going to react until I get enough content here. Row 1, 2, 3. Are you getting it? Now, if I reduce it, it will kind of preserve because we have content right inside it. But once you click on this to make sure it is 3 lines, you can see it said 1 row auto-generated. Let's make it 3, 3. Then this goes away. Now you can now choose the direction, either this way or this way. You can see it has sorted this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But if you choose this way, it will sort it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's important for you to know when to use grid and when to use flex. Okay. If you want to put things, if you want things to adjust easily on their own, to automatically adjust when there's an overflow of content, you want to go ahead and use grid. But if you want to just get sizes of a specific content container, you want to go ahead and use what? Flex. Are we together? And you can choose the spacing here. So the spacing here, if we choose 32, if I click here, you can clearly see the spacing here. This is the 32 we are referring to. If you choose here, if you come here and you choose 12, you can see the spacing here decreases. So know when to use flex and also know when to use what? Grid. And like I told you, if you're just looking for containers to drop content into and they shouldn't flow, if you don't want them to flow, just use flex. But if you want them to flow, by flow, I mean, let's assume you have extra content here. You have extra content here. If you go ahead and just do Control D, you can see it has automatically created extra grid, extra cell for you. Unlike here, we can't actually enter a second row for this section because it's a flex display. So we can't do a second row. If we want to do a second row, we have to manually duplicate this parent container to get a second row. But if we want those automatic rows and automatic columns, then you want to go ahead and choose what? Grid. So I'm going to stop here and allow you guys to ask questions if you have questions. Any questions so far? Any question? Okay, no question. So that means we are getting it. But remember, you have to practice more often to start understanding these things. So let's go to a website. Let's go to a website. Which website should we go to? Let's go to which website? Okay, let's just do Slack. Let's go to Slack. Okay, so let's take a look at Slack, for example. Okay, good. So to get something like this, you can clearly see that now there are different techniques. So, but by default, we can clearly see that this section here, this hero section, okay, this hero section here, this hero section you can see here, okay. Sorry, I'm drawing with my mouse, not my pen. You see this hero section, you could just say div. If you say div, flex, if you just say flex, then you type in this content here, it will work. Then the next content will be the get started. You drop the button, drop this one, then drop this section. Okay, drop this section. That means we are using flex, but we are using this direction. So flex, but we are using what? This direction. So let me show you main container flex, but we are using this direction. Okay, we're using this direction. We want it to be stacked from top to bottom, and that is what we have going on here. You are using flex top to bottom, so you have this. Now on reaching here, this is going to be a parent div, and then inside this parent div, you are also going to have the display set to flex. Then when you set it to flex, or okay, this is a good place to use grid. Okay, this is a good place to use grid because you want this to expand. Let's say you add a new logo, it should automatically expand. So this is a good place to use grid. Are you getting to represent grids of what? Item. So remember, parent container, you are using what? Flex. Then you put your text, you put your button, you put your text, then you have another div, and this div will be set to what? Display grid, which you can now put in all these icons into. Okay, now you can now have another div with this image. So it's important. I'll answer that question shortly. So it's important that you actually understand how to do this. Okay, it's important we actually understand how to do this. And I want to go ahead. I don't know if you guys are watching on movie, are watching on phone or on what is it, on your laptop, because with what we've just done so far, I'm going to give you guys 20 minutes. We don't have much time. I wanted to give you guys 20 minutes to actually recreate this for me, but probably I'll give it to you guys as an assignment based on what I just explained. Remember, we have our main div. Okay, we have our main div. We have our main div. That's the section div. Okay, we have the section div here. We have the section div. Now, this section div, the content inside is set to flex, but the flex direction is this way. So you add your content, it sticks. You add your content, it stays. You add your content, it stays. For this one, you have a div. Then inside this div is set to what? Grids. So that you can add this, add this, add this, add this, add this, add this. Then remember, you continue adding your content, your picture content here. That is how you get something like this. Okay? That's how you get something like this. For the color, you can actually just use gradient to do this. You can use gradient for this. Okay? So any question? Let me answer that question by someone said, looking at Webflow and limitation practices to just to this. What's the motivation for developers and businesses? Like I think I explained this last time. The motivation here is that most companies are moving away from WordPress and Wix and the rest of them to go to Webflow and other tools like Framer that gives you that liberty to create anything you want. Despite how advanced WordPress is, there are some certain things that is just a little bit too, there is a point to which its customization gets to. And at the end of the day, if you want to customize any small thing, you need a plugin. Customize any plugin. And most of the time, those plugins, they come with a bunch of code you probably don't need, which impact on the performance of this particular site. So because most companies are moving to Webflow and Framer, the 2 pages does not limit you, right? Instead, you are more positioned to get like a designer job, a web designer job, compared to someone that is using WordPress, especially if you are trying to get foreign jobs. Most foreign companies now, they prefer to use Webflow to build. So in as much as you have 2 pages, 2 files to practice on, don't forget you'll be working for people who will already pay for these things and then invite you as the Webflow developer. Do you get it now? So that's what you're learning. And for businesses, like you said, for businesses, it gives them easy access to build really what they want from scratch without hiring developers to code it. Okay, great. Any other question? Let me mute so that I can hear you guys. Okay, no other question. Okay, good. So let me delete all this. Let's come back here. The next thing we'll take a look at now is spacing. Spacing, okay? So with spacing, let me go ahead and use this and explain the spacing, okay? So with spacing now, you come in here, okay? You have margin and you have padding. Margin is the space outside the content, okay? While padding is the space inside the content, okay? You can see this our parent container, this main container, okay? The main container that is giving this red color, if you notice, is the same height as these elements. Is the same height. They are basically gummed together. If I want to increase, if I want to give it a breathing space, if I want to give these guys inside a breathing space, I would add padding. Okay, and how do you add padding? You come here, you have your top padding. I can say 60 here. Now you can see we have a breathing space now of 60 px. You can also repeat the same thing at the bottom. Now you can clearly see that they have breathing space now. Okay, and if you want it on the left and right as well, you can do that on the left and right. Okay, do that on the left and also do that on the right. And let's go ahead and see what's going on. Now we have 60 px padding all round. So that's spacing. Okay, we have 60 px padding all round. But what is margin? Margin is the space between this box and the next object. So if we go to margin instead, and we make margin, let's see, 20, you can see it has given us this white space. So what is basically happening here? Let me scroll down here. You can see that this element here, this color here, all these colors, there is no space between these colors and the container. That's because they are not using any margin. Okay, but you can see the distance between these elements, between the tab bar and this particular place. That distance is called margin. Okay, the distance between this and this is called margin, because you can see this on its own, right? Although sometimes you might confuse it with padding. It is not padding. Okay, now the distance between, I'm looking for They actually used a lot of full margin here, full width. So this might not work. Okay. So the distance between this place and this place is margin as well. Okay, it's margin. The distance between this and this is also margin. Okay. Meanwhile, so you have margin and you have padding. So margin is outside the box. Padding is within. Okay, so we set it back to 0. But if you want to center the container, make sure you choose auto here and also come to this margin side and choose auto. That will automatically center the elements. Okay. So let me give you guys again 1 minute to ask question because I like you guys asking questions. Let's go. Please ask. Okay, no questions. So let's proceed. So that is margin and padding for you. And the next thing here is the size. Okay, size is also very important. So on size, you can set the width of your content, okay, in different measurements. Now you can use px, you can use percentage, you can use rep. These ones are self-explanatory, but the one I want to explain again is this one, view width, view width. Anytime you want the container or the element to automatically fill in the width of the person's screen, that means immediately the person visits, you want the container to automatically fill the device width. If not TV, it should fill the TV. If it is phone, it should fill the phone. If it is laptop, it should fill the laptop width before the first scroll. Then that is view width and view height. View width and view height, they are the same. So width will automatically copy the whole, occupy the whole width, while height will occupy the whole height. So if you are looking for a screen that will occupy the whole width and the whole height at once, that means you want to come to width here and set this towards width, and you also want to go to height, view width, and you also want to go to height and set it towards view height. So that is what we can cover for today. It's almost 8:30. I want you guys to do some practicals for me so that I can see you guys designing. Okay, let me be sure that you guys are understanding everything we're doing. So you are going to have like 20 minutes to practice. But before then, do you have any question? If you have any question, please ask. Okay, no question. So go to your Webflow, open your Webflow, and go ahead and design just this section. Remember, you know how to pick all this. You know how to pick all these graphics. Okay, you should know how to pick all these graphics. Although this one is a video, so we might add this later, but create a space for it because it's not always a good idea to embed videos like this, except they are lightweight. And I'm not sure there's a way for you to download this video. So instead, we are going to take this as a picture instead, but just build out. Remember, you're not building this top, okay? Just build this out for me. This made for people, built for productivity, then the button, then this Slack, and then this logo strip. So just build it out. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to call on one of you, then you share your screen so I can see exactly what you are doing. Can we do that? And after the exercise, we can call it a night. Okay, so your time starts now. So the design is right here. If you don't want to be coming to Google Meet, you can open slack.com. Okay, so in the next 10 minutes, let's see what you can do. So I've set up a 10 minutes timer. So that we can work with time, okay? Remember, you're doing copy and paste. Don't be retyping. And if you finish before then, you can just sing now so you can share it. Okay, so we have like 2 minutes more. So after 2 minutes, we'll just share our screen so that I can see what you have. Okay. Ayodele, are you done? What about you, Kingsley? Let me see. Oh, you are joining on your phone. Voila. Okay. Kingsley, we're able to work on it. Kingsley, are you there? I can't hear from you. Anyway, if you're unable to finish it, try and make sure you complete this project, okay? So like I said, for the video, you can just use your sniping tool. You can use your Windows sniping tool to take a screenshot, okay? Take a screenshot of this image and replace it with this. The goal is for you to know how to, recreate any design, because like I said, as a Webflow developer, you are going to be sent these designs, then you develop them. So make sure you practice better, okay? Practice more and try out different web pages you see and try creating them. So it's very important to recreate them so that you can get used to creating on Webflow. By next week, we are going to continue the units. And by the end of the 4th week, we should actually be comfortable working on Webflow. And immediately after that, we are going to be working on a full project together. Okay. And after that full project together, you are going to be given your capstone project to work on. So I don't know if you have any question. If you don't have any question, we can go ahead and end the session. Kingsley, do you have any question? Because I was expecting you guys to do this so I can check it out, but I think most of you joined with your phones. So please, these live classes, please try as much as possible to join with your system. Okay. Do you have any question, Kingsley? Okay, since there are no questions, I'll go ahead and end the live now. See you guys next week, Friday. Okay.
I'm not.